Let's go. Okay, it's starting soon. You swap over whenever. Let's go. Good afternoon, evening, morning, gentlemen. We are back, baby. It's another episode of the Breaking Point podcast. We have the full crew today, and it's going to be a good one because, yeah, everything just got leaked pretty much. Crone came out with the final Crone bomb of his career, which is, you know, it's sad, but it's also thanks for the memories.
Boys, it was fun. It was fun. It was stressful a lot of times, but it was fun as well. I had fun.
That's what we like to see. That's what it's about at the end of the day. If we're having fun, that's what we're about. Yeah, welcome all in the chat. We are going to have a good show today because we're going to go through practically every roster that we currently understand, go through the roster builder, try and work out, are these rosters actually any good? Oh, wow, I must done it. Oh my god, that's actually so good. Wait, what is this over? Wow, how long did this take you to make? Actually, is unbelievable. Wow, that's actually so funny. What a quality meme. I mean, I must build different, bro. That is fantastic. Oh, you did the tactical nuke. Let's go. Wow. Yeah, I was hoping this would happen. That might be the best thing I've ever seen, actually. Puts my meme to shame. My meme isn't particularly special, though, but it'll come soon. But yeah, welcome everyone in the chat. Let's go, baby. Yeah, apparently you're grinding Vanguard Chrome. What's going on?
Yeah,
Well,
man,
people said you were in the game.
I was playing it, or right now. Nah. I was actually playing it last night until like 2 a.m. Not even kidding you.
Build different, this guy.
Bro, I got nothing else to play. Like, quarters left. I don't have nothing.
Yeah,
Wait, so SlasheR is the most likely player on FaZe? Just so
from what I understand. Yeah.
That is how it presently seems. Kind of crazy, huh? Like, kind of crazy.
Makes sense though.
I like it as a based Litter stan. I'm in full support of like there's few players that I'm biased about, but I do like, I am a SlasheR enjoyer. So
that's a good way to put it.
I'm not gonna hide away from that fact. So, you know. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm trying to find a good thing to reply with, but I can't really find much good stuff.
I just saw that meme there, Omar. Was that you, Omar? Oh, you can't.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, it's just superb.
I love how it's just Las Vegas Legion temp.
I like that every year, bro. Like every year they.
Yeah, but you can't risk it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't know like what they're going to be playing at over the coming weeks. Things could change a lot.
Like I remember in Cold War, I have someone. We can talk about Florida a little bit later. I have a little bit more. But I remember last year, like the early Paris roster was like Zedin's, Pred, like someone else, and they didn't get none of them.
Oh wow, okay. Oh man, that would have been.
But if they got
Paris,
Pred, man.
Right. For Paris, this team could have been crazy. Like they could have had the whole Hydra, Pred, like was Afro not? Oh, who were the other guys? They could have been. That like Brandon wanted to give them.
It was like Afro, Pred, Hydra, and somebody else.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I don't know exactly what the roles would have been, but like,
I think Hydra at that point was
it was
like,
5. It was 5v5. It was 5v5.
Oh, this is in 2020. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm talking about Cold War.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, it's every year they fuck up. So
they've
that
done
team
it
would have
again.
been crazy in 2020. God damn.
Agreed. Okay, I've got to reply with something to this tweet, so I'm just going to reply with this, and then we're going to crack on. All right, beautiful work. Kind of big on the screen, but it's okay. Enjoy the sound effect. What's good, everyone?
How I feel about New York, man. That looks
I kind of agree. I'm not the biggest fan. Like I would like to have seen Hydra on FaZe, but you know, it is what it is.
That would never work.
Didn't have
a team would have That team would have been not good.
It would have been fun.
Because that team, like, the communication would have went down the drain.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Like,
I mean, that's
one
the
of
thing.
our like weaknesses.
Interesting, actually, because I know you've always talked, Austin, about the whole EU-NA thing. It doesn't work, having players in different regions. It was kind of funny that you guys linked to Insight, I thought. But, any comments?
I don't know. Got no comment. I just think, like, usually, like, it's not like, it's just communication. Like, when it's 240 and it just starts crumbling, it's a higher chance to happen. I mean, that's just an all esports thing too. It's like, even in CS, it's pretty brand new that you're seeing like high level, like, multinational teams. Like, usually it was like one like all France or all Dutch or all French or all Dutch or like all Swedish, So like, I just know, like, the communication on that instance would be not prime. So, like, in the fourth person, either whether you go down like the IGL route or whether you go down the more slaying power, whatever it is, it's probably that person needs to have good communication.
What do you reckon's the best multinational team ever?
In COD? Jesus.
Would Toronto Ultra count?
Multinational, OpTic Dynasty, baby. Come as Canadian.
Oh, like multi-regional, like we really haven't had one. Like, I don't think, like,
New York last year.
Team wasn't that good though.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, actually, because I guess that does technically count, Lion. I didn't really think about that. But you're kind of right.
Because that team didn't win anything though.
Well, on the prime, baby, that counts.
Yeah, but I don't think
you mean this past season, this Vanguard.
Yeah, Hydra technically is
either or. Yeah, both of them. 21
international roster.
I mean, there was like a splice roster with like Jared? Do you remember that? And like Black Ops 4?
Yeah, but he's Irish.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I know, but like, I'm talking like, well, because no, because it was American. It was like Temp, Jared.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that splice team. They were decent. They came second for Worth
and
LG.
Third at Vegas.
They should have bloody done better there because they
lost that Seaside.
No, I guess that one really doesn't count though, because that one was just Jared, Accuracy, Looney, Aqua.
Yeah, but Looney's technically Mexican, so is Aqua.
Like, I just don't know if there's ever been a roster with 2 European players and 2 like NA players or 2 APOC or whatever. Just like 2 multi-regional teams that have ever been good. I just don't know.
It was like that OpTic Nation team, right? When it was like Swanee and Jerd or something, and TP and that. But they were pretty crap. Jerd wasn't there, no. But it was. Like, I just don't think
it's not that it can't work. It's just, I don't think there's really been a lot of opportunities for it to work.
Yeah, like, there's no.
Yeah,
precedent.
That's also a fair point. Okay, cool. Should we crack on? I think we should crack on. Welcome everyone to the stream. I'm gonna hit the record. Is it 79, Omar? 79. All right, fantastic. Right, I'll do the 3, 2, 1. Are we ready for the 3, 2, 1, everyone?
Yes.
Hit the thumbs up. Good stuff. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, subscribe back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome to episode 79 of the Breaking Point podcast. And wow, we've got a cracker today. All the boys are here because we're going to do what is effectively a roster building-esque show. All the leaks came out a few minutes ago here by Mesa Crone at the final Chrome bomb of his career. Congratulations, of course. Also, unfortunate for the scene. We'll discuss that in a second. But yes, we've got all the rosters to dive into. We've got a beautiful roster builder that Brandon Novus made for us to effectively pick the rosters, see what the entire stats are for the rosters, how these teams should theoretically perform, and then we'll try and give them some sort of grade. Of course, these are only rumors, but a lot of these will probably happen. So we can give an understanding of whether these teams should have made these moves and if any of these have actually got significantly better, because I think some teams have, some teams I'm not so convinced. Boys, how's it going? Crone, congrats on a phenomenal career as the best COD reporter we've ever seen. Hope to keep you around the scene in some capacity, but the chaos was just getting a bit too much.
Yeah, man, it was just too much, bro. Like, it's stressful every year, but I think as the years went on, the rush and the high that used to take over the stress once everything was over kind of dulled down, and it's for me it's not worth it. It's not worth it all anymore, and obviously financially I have kids and stuff, so I have to find out what's best for me, and This wasn't really. It was paying the bills, but not quite as enough now that we're in the off season. So hopefully I can stick around. Like I really still want to run the account, but that obviously depends on what job I pick up next, whether it's in real life or if I stay in esports or Call of Duty or not. So who knows? Hopefully I can stick around. But roster leagues for sure. Like I'm done with that. I'm done.
Yeah. Would you not stay next year if it's like a massive year for COD, and the next 2 years, and then more opportunities open up?
I mean, I don't know. If I was like a 17-year-old kid, then I could. But because I have kids, like I have to worry about paying the bills, So that's like my first priority is to find a job, whether or not it's a job outside and touching grass, or if it's inside, in esports. But I still love Call of Duty. I just the leaking stuff was just too much, and it wasn't worth it. I really wasn't. Aside from when I was with Esports, I wasn't making like an incredible amount of money. So yeah, hopefully I can stick around.
Sorry, is my mic the correct mic again?
I mean, I think it. Well, I feel like it did this before, and we couldn't stop it, but it's okay. We run with it.
I might rejoin the call. One moment.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We're going to go ski, and then we're going to be back. But I mean, yeah, let's crack on straight with the teams, to be honest, because oh my god, do you see that preparation from Omar right there with the production? We went from 4 to 3 and back to 4. Wow, that was actually next level. That might be the best. That's right, baby. That's a Wobo right there in the chat.
Good shit, Omar.
Okay, I think we just crack on, baby. So, I mean, look, I was going to kind of talk about the OpTic drama, the FaZe stuff, all this, but I think we just start from the top of the rosters, to be honest, of the ones that Crone had in the article. So I think it started with Thieves, that I don't really think we need to touch on much because obviously they were going to stick anyway. OpTic, I mean, look, we've got to talk about the OpTic stuff to some degree. I don't know if you want to bring up, Omar, the roster builder and just chuck in the OpTic boys, and we can just dive into what actually happened this past week because I'm still kind of mind blown. I mean, yeah, I heard some rumors quite shortly after the World Championship that this team was not happy. Now, the thing is with that is it's like you've got Scump away on holiday and you've got the rest of the boys at home, or like Shotzi's back in wherever he is in LA or something, and then Illy's back in Canada. And it's like, well, all the guys are on vacation, but yet mysteriously some things are being discussed. And I'm guessing to a certain extent, Scump, Shotzi, Rambo, whatever, were having words. And yeah, it's so strange because the iLLeY kind of thing made sense to me to kind of, because the risk is so great that something might happen again. I think it was understandable if they thought, you know what, Cammy's a free agent. There's other free agents. Let's try and make a move there because they already wanted Cammy before. The DASHY thing was the mind-blowing thing to everyone because he's been, such a great player for this org. And then to drop him effectively on his neck. My understanding is that DASHY was completely caught off guard by that, did not expect it, and was, effectively just received a phone call and was told he was dropped. Obviously wasn't very happy. The restricted free agent tweets come out, and then immediately everyone's starting internally, things obviously they start having words, and then eventually within about 48 hours they decide to stick it out for next year. Man, Crone, do you have any further insight or thoughts on this? Because I know that a lot of people are thinking, wow, well, everything is fine. It's sunshine and rainbows, baby. There's no bad blood. There's nothing to see here. But I'm like, there's absolutely no way that it's all good in that camp as a result of this. Even if it is on the surface, one bad result, one bad veto decision, I'll tell you, things are going to start getting heated. So I don't know if they've made a mistake sticking together. I'm kind of inclined to believe they have, given the fact that other teams have made changes. But, we know the potential of that team.
Yeah, I mean, that 24 hours was crazy, bro. Like,
that's where you made in the YouTube video titles.
Yeah, bro, and even like I think I announced that I was retiring like an hour before OpTic switched, announced that they weren't, and I was like, bro, I'm so glad I'm out of this shit. Like, Jesus. But I mean, Scum seems to think that they all hashed it out and everything's okay. One of the funniest things about this is I heard, and I think they said it on the flank or someone said it, that Hydra actually didn't know until he read the tweet. Like he found out on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, what the fuck? I guess I'm not going." Like that's fucked up. I can understand why, because they probably didn't want leaks, and I know it's a really weird situation to be in when you're trying to build a roster and you're telling someone you come here and talking behind the back and rekindling your relationship. But I thought that was pretty funny and sad for Hydra at the same time. But nah, the COD community was definitely flipped on its head for that 24 hours. And I think in that same 24 hours, I could be wrong, Arcitys also announced that he was a free agent. And a lot of people thought he was trolling for like 3 days. And he really wasn't. And I honestly thought he was at first too. But then I heard he wasn't. But it was a crazy 24 hours, man.
Yeah. Do you reckon there's any way that the issues with New York on the flank kind of changed OpTic's decision at all to like not go for Hydra? Or just like maybe that incentive to like just make sure this team can finally have a good run? Like, what do you reckon?
In my opinion, I think the only people that suffered from that flank was probably crimsix and maybe even paulehx, because there might have been a point where they would have considered paulehx as a starter because they needed a flex player. But no, I think probably only crimsix and maybe Paul were affected by that flank, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a weird one because like I feel like they would have probably got I feel like they probably would have got Hydra. I mean, you obviously did the article Crown saying that they were links to Hydra and Cammy at the time before things went tits up. But I think they probably would have done that if they hadn't decided to stick. But such a weird one because then Crim came out and said that his understanding was, and I've also kind of heard this, that DASHY was vouching for iLLeY internally, and without DASHY's vouch for iLLeY, he probably wouldn't have been there. Which is also quite the story as well. So, because iLLeY's probably sitting there thinking, well, damn, I mean, this is why I was even wondering before they haven't technically signed their deals yet, things could still change, but they will stay there. But like, if you're iLLeY, DASHY, he's been on this organization for a while. I'm sure he'd expect some loyalty from those other guys, but iLLeY's only been here for a year. Like, I don't know how much affiliation he feels to OpTic necessarily as a brand, and the other guys were. He knows they were going behind his back to drop him, as does DASHY, but I feel like DASHY, loves OpTic so much that he would never step away. Like, even if DASHY was vouching for iLLeY and then the team said, no, we're dropping iLLeY anyway, we can't take the risk, like, DASHY's not just going to leave OpTic in that case. Like, he's still going to stay, but he can make his point be known. But yeah, I mean, Austin, obviously, OpTic top competitor for you guys going into next year, whatever the rosters look like. If you were them, given what other teams have done, would you have potentially made a move? Because I know that obviously you don't have to talk about the FaZe stuff, but there were rumors that maybe FaZe were thinking about Pred or some of the Seattle guys, and there was people saying, and I think understandably, that like a lot of this SMG talent in the league is going to get locked up. Like Hydra's going to get locked up with New York. You've got Pred maybe either getting locked up on Seattle or potentially on another team next year if he was to leave Seattle. Maybe OpTic could get him next season, but I think OpTic have to think about that. And I thought that maybe the Hydra thing was quite an intelligent, longer-term move from OpTic to be like, okay, maybe Scump becomes the flex and eventually will retire in a year or two. And then Hydra and Shotzzy can be the new blood SMG line for the team. Whereas now they might not have that option and they might be forced into another change mid-season if the iLLeY injury recurs, at which point all the good players they could have picked up are now gone. So, I don't know. I think I kind of like them sticking, but I almost think that I'm not sure it's the right decision. I don't know. What do you reckon, Austin?
Yeah, I don't mind them sticking, honestly. If like iLLeY's fully healthy, they'll still be a top competitor. That's my only worry about that. Like the rumored, I think this is better than the rumored roster that they had. So like I don't think this is a downgrade by any means. Like could they have gotten like upgrades? Like sure, but I don't think that rumored roster was an upgrade over their current roster by any means. They didn't have a true leader on that team, like a true IGL. You have experience there, but you don't have a true IGL that's been in that situation before. So it would have had to be someone new again, where you could, if it doesn't go right, you enter into this carousel of like other people trying to pick it up, and it just never ends well. And like the roles like didn't make a lot of sense for that team. So like this one, it works when you guys are clicking. It works when everyone's healthy. So like why cut it short? Just because there's some tensions going on that may or may not have been caused by an injury. You know what I mean? So like, if you can fix the injury, try to go back to previous form, try to rebuild that trust and confidence in each other, and then see where that goes. But if they don't click, or if like iLLeY's injury is something that's long term, that's still not fixed by the start of the game, that's when obviously they're going to have to start asking the difficult questions of what do we do from here.
And who would you get to replace iLLeY in the role that he has on that team? Like, there's not many players who have like the same ability and leading ability.
Yeah, because like he is a very, very, very vocal part of that team. So, and the other guys are kind of like, they're not quiet, but like you need someone that has a strong voice, that knows how to IGL, that's gonna like make a call, and everyone's gonna like listen to it. You don't need, like, that doesn't require veteranship. So like a lot of people said like Scump can do that, but like I don't think Scump's really done that role ever. He's always just kind of like just fucking fried, you know what I mean? So like they would need somebody to come in, and I guess there's a couple of different options. Like I know like a gunless has come in, and not like, I don't know if that's gonna work in that situation, but you need someone who's gonna like have a voice, and be able to guide these guys, which, you know, maybe they won't have to do too much, but I still think like you would need somebody like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to just like pick a name out of a hat, but you'd probably need an AR that has like a voice. And from that, there's not too many options. Like
maybe attach, but
yeah,
I don't really know if I like that much. But
I mean, you have like main ARs, like where you have like SlasheR, Lamar. You have some players that have had a little bit of a rough stretch. Where you have like Preston, Mike, like Major Maniac, Priesta. You could go gunless, but like gunless is like someone who, he knows how he wants to play, and if like everyone can play that way, it like clicks. But sometimes there can be like clashes there. It's the same thing with a bunch of other players like Crim and all them. Honestly, Crim and Clay could be, you know, people of interest. Octane just had a really good year. If you listen to their like intros or like their comms,
Octane, right?
Yeah, no. There's a couple players, but you don't really need firepower there. Like, that's not what they need. They need someone that has good communication. This is what I was
thinking, like,
and they need someone that to like rally the troops when shit
with
starts,
the whole DASHY thing. Because I was kind of wondering, like, if they were getting rid of iLLeY, then I was thinking, wonder whether they were thinking like, okay, well, we get rid of iLLeY and DASHY, and then bring in a main AR who brings the leadership side that iLLeY brings, and then get another flex. Like, that would have been a possibility. Mm-hmm. Like, because obviously Arcitys at that point might have been an option. So, man, it's a crazy situation. But yeah, I just think that it's a weird one for OpTic fans, because I know that a lot of OpTic fans are really happy that this team has stuck together, and I think understandably. But in the same breath, I just think that this team now has a much shorter fuse than it used to. Like, if things start going badly wrong, I can't see this team lasting another season. Like, there's just no way. So they might have to just hope that in maybe the post-Major 2 rostermania chaos that probably happens again, that there might be other teams in a similar boat. If it goes badly wrong, it might not do. They usually start the year strong, and we could expect that again. So, yeah, for OpTic fans, I've just got to hope the iLLeY thing doesn't happen again. Thoughts on this, Crone?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they definitely have a shorter fuse. You know, they probably have to come out hot straight away, which, I mean, these OpTic teams always do. Almost every year, they look really good at the start. But I still have faith in the team, bro. You know, I'm a big fan of this team. It's probably my favorite team overall. I think that'll be fun. Hopefully, they just put it all behind them and they just try to work their hardest. And I think the only thing for us is we should definitely keep an eye on what substitute player they get, you know, what role that is, and that's kind of, you know, indication of where their worries really are in the team.
Quick question, Crone, actually. What's your read on the whole Sender stuff? Because I know you put in the article that Sender might be a free agent coach. Like, do you have any idea why that might have been the case? Just because I know Rambo said that they were looking for an analyst now. It's like, is that the team deciding to move on from Sender, or is it him deciding to go and explore a role where he can have more responsibility? Like, it's tough to say, huh?
I honestly, I didn't know too much about that. That's why it was kind of just little stuff at the end. I have no idea where he might be going or why. I would assume Rambo is probably just going to be the head coach, and that's it. You know, I've never been big on like assistant coaches. I don't know. It's just me. Obviously, we're not on the call when they're coaching, We don't know what each coach and each assistant coach does. But I don't know if it's needed, especially if you have Rambo. But hopefully they bring in JP. If they bring in JP, is easily the second best analyst to Austin, who's in the call right now.
Yeah, facts.
I will add on. I think so. Assistant coaches for like what they do. I think if you use them correctly, they're extremely valuable because, especially with like a guy like Ray, who's very straightforward. He's kind of like what I just described Pierce. Like he knows how he wants to play Call of Duty, and like he's trying to like get you to play the best you can be. And sometimes that can be pretty blunt. Assistant coaches, the way like we kind of do it is we alternate who coaches which scrim. So you're not hearing the same voice not nagging, but like telling, like trying to be helpful, but like obviously telling you what you're doing wrong, having that conversation, but it's not the same voice every scrim. So you don't, it's like, do you know when you're like, you go to school every day and your teacher's just like on your ass and you're just like, oh Jesus, man, I have to go to this class. And then like, it's like that continuously. Just imagine that over 220 days, over probably 250. Like, so out of 220 days, you have to have the same voice. You know what I mean? So like, if the assistant coach like can take off of that pressure, and so like it lightens the load, and it like allows you to have a different like voice. So like ideally, like I always think like you want two coaches that are like they have different strengths and weaknesses. Like that's why I think like Shane and Cap is like perfect for LA Thieves. Like Chris and RJ are like perfect for us. Because you get two different personalities, you get like two different strengths and weaknesses, and then usually I think every team should have an analyst to basically allow their coaches to work the best they can. So like that's the system that I like, but I can see why other people like don't see the value in that if they don't have it working perfectly.
Agreed. Let's do another roster because there's plenty to dive into. Is it possible, Omar, that you can kind of bring up the roster builder and chuck them in? Because, I mean, do we want to start with FaZe or should we just leave it a little bit till we do FaZe? Let's do a little bit. Well, we might as well start with FaZe. Okay, so what's going on, Austin? Give us all the juice. So, okay, it was interesting, really.
Austin.
Yeah, no, Austin could just tab out, I think, to be honest. But, okay, so anyway, FaZe, Arcitys announces restricted free agent, and I think the assumption was at the time, given that DASHY had just announced the same, was like, wow, okay, well, DASHY for Arcitys, that's now a thing. Even though the rumor was that this team wanted Shotzzy. And in fairness, all the rumors we've heard around players that this team might pick up in terms of like Shotzzy and even talking to maybe the Seattle guys at Pred, or even Hydra was linked briefly, and now SlasheR, and it's players from every role, but it's all players with just straight firepower. Like, I mean, we look at these numbers here in this roster builder, theoretically, based on the last season. SlasheR didn't have his best season in Vanguard, but he still dropped good numbers, because that's what he does. And his ceiling as an individual player, like, I'm kind of, as I said before the show begins, I'm kind of a base SlasheR enjoyer. Like, I kind of enjoy SlasheR's gameplay. I've got great respect for him, what he's done in COD history, more than most people, I think. So I'm a bit of a SlasheR fan, to be fair. But I mean, yeah, so that's why I'm a bit biased in my take on this matter. But he does add more firepower to the team. You do lose a fair bit losing Arcitys, though. It's a really interesting one. There's so many different angles on this that you can take, because did that FaZe team really need more firepower? And will they lose a lot by losing Arcitys? Or was it just, the thing is in COD, it's only a matter of time before teams internally just have had a bit too much. This, I think, was the case with Toronto, that even if Toronto would have done very well this year and would have had a load of second places like FaZe did, I still think they might have blown it up, because I just think those players got to a point where they were pretty frustrated with playing with each other and they just kind of had enough. And it was like, we need some sort of change. I don't know if it's the same with FaZe, but the longest roster we've ever seen in COD history is the OpTic Dynasty for maybe 3 and a bit seasons. Like, you don't see rosters last that long for various reasons. And when you've won everything and then you don't win everything, it takes a toll. And we've said it before, and it seems to have happened. But I mean, yeah, Chrome, what do you think? Because it doesn't seem to me like SlasheR was necessarily the first choice here. And if it had been a Shotzzy, for example, if that was even a thing, like Simp Flex sell main, now sells the Flex again. There's some role questions here, whatever they do.
Yeah, and I still don't know whether it was like a player choice, because I remember you probably put on one of your videos and it was on Reddit, but ABZ said, someone said, why would you drop Arcitys? And he said, you don't know anything. So I don't know if it was like maybe a franchise decision, or Like, I really don't know, but it definitely was a surprise to everyone. There was a few days in there where I really thought that they were gonna. There was a small possibility that they could pick up Pred, and I wanted it so bad. I was about to phase up all year next year, but that didn't happen. I know it was rumored that they were looking at Insight. I did hear that. I don't know if they actually inquired about him to Toronto Ultra, but I did hear that. I think I might have heard like Kamian and Hydra as well, and they probably looked at. They probably had a list of like over 10 people. But like you said, I don't think SlasheR was the first option, but it's definitely not the worst option. I like this move. I like this move a lot. I don't think they get worse. They definitely don't get worse. I don't think they get that much better as they obviously they're already amazing, but I like the move. I like the move. And SlasheR is a good leader. That's what they need. They don't need a super talented player like DASHY or something. They just need someone to do the job, Like accuracy on Seattle, but obviously SlasheR is a little bit more better than that, respectfully.
Yeah. I was wondering, because I heard the Pred stuff as well. Who would have moved to the Flex or AR?
I think
because it would have been
I think people were saying Simp.
Simp would make the most sense. I mean, Austin probably has more intel on that. But with the SlasheR move,
he's muted out.
We might get something out of Austin. With the SlasheR move, I kind of like it. The biggest question I have is he going to come into this team and be like the vocal leader like he has been on majority of the other teams he's been on? Or is he going to be more of a slot in, kind of see how the team works, understand the dynamic, and then kind of play his role without being the vocal leader? I'm not sure, and I want to see that. What do you have to say about that, Austin?
I have no input.
Yeah.
I could tell you if we did have 3 SMGs, it would be like Simp. Simp's like we always said, like Simp would be the best AR in the entire league if he ran it full time. It's just he's more like he'll win more on the SMG. You know what I mean? I mean, I the shit I saw in Gavutu this year is fucking absurd. Like when we had like the 3 SMG or 3 ARs. So, yeah,
that was my first memory of Simp was watching him with an M8A7 back in Black Ops 3, just not missing any bullets, and I thought he was like an AR player at the time. So there you go, I guess.
Yeah, I think Gavutu. I feel like Gavutu made a lot of SMG players feel like, oh wait, I could run an AR. There's a lot of ARs out there. Like even Scump, we saw Scump use it and he was massive, and there was a lot of SMG players who were like, yo, this guy's good with an SMG assault rifle.
Well, that thing sucked, man.
Oh yeah, let's not talk about it. The thing that I like about this, I think, is because I know that a lot of people are going to raise the whole chemistry thing, and we know that SlasheR, his teams can have a tendency to either be fantastic and win. I mean, in fairness, this team did kind of both this year, right? It won, and it also wasn't great at other times, and the chemistry, I'm sure, internally wasn't great either. I think the reason why this is maybe better for SlasheR than previous iterations is because SlasheR is never a guy who likes to team with rookies. He likes to team with guys that are proven champions, ideally. But even then, I think that SlasheR on a lot of his teams in the past that should have done well, but didn't do well, were teams where he felt like he was better than his teammates. And he was like, well, I'm the star guy, and I'm teaming with these guys, and yeah, they might have won in the past, but it's not working out. Like, I need better teammates and we can win. And he kind of did that before, Envy World War II. That team with, Hook, Temp, and Classic should have worked out, didn't work out, and he was like, I'm leaving, I'm out of here. Went to Rise with some better guys, and they won, obviously, a couple of things. But I feel like this move, like, SlasheR is going to have the utmost respect for these players and for this opportunity. Like, this is the best opportunity of practically his entire career if he gets it. So I don't think there's maybe the chemistry isn't perfect, but I mean, I don't think you're going to have to worry about SlasheR blowing up this team internally, because if Simp tells him he's wrong, or if Abeezy tells him he's wrong, or if Cell tells him he's wrong, he's not going to clap back and be like, no, I'm the world champion here, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's potentially an advantage here from that side of things. That was just one thought that I had. But yeah, people in chat are going to maybe disagree.
You reckon, like, because he's teaming with players that have, like, better accolades than him, his ego is going to be in check?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, effectively. Yeah, no, you summed it up nicely.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We will see.
We will see. We will see. I mean, we'll talk about the flip side of it, right? So if SlasheR goes here, then we said that there's no such thing as a trade in the CDL, but this honestly could be a trade that benefits both teams. Arcitys going to Gorillas. If you want to bring this one up, Omar, that would be appreciated. Really interesting team. I think the Gorillas, Crone, to my understanding, were like one of the only teams with enough cash to actually make this buyout happen. There was not many teams that had the facilities for that big man. But they keep the rest of their players, which is, I don't know, it could work out. It's Modern Warfare, it's a new title. We don't really know how good this trio of Hecz, Sparta, Neptune could be, but this year they weren't exactly great.
Yeah, this I mean, this is obviously a downgrade for Arcitys, but and I'm not sold on the roster at all. But you know, who knows what these guys look like next year? Who really knows? I think going into this year, Gorillas didn't really have like a real direction, so they likely probably just said, you know, we'll resign everyone and figure everything out, you know, in a week or two. And it looks like they're gone with 3 of their former players in Arcitys. You know, the Gorillas I would definitely say is the richest org in the CDL, so they can afford to flop the cock around and buy whoever they want. So obviously they had enough money for Arcitys. I think from what I understand, the buyout for Arcitys was like, I think if I remember correctly, like 400 to 500,000. Like it was a lot of money, you know. And there were a few people asking about it and wanting to buy them, but you know, I guess Gorillas ended up going to Gorillas. It looks like. I'm surprised we didn't get an announcement, to be honest, because last year Gorillas announced on day 1. They announced it. I was hoping
Arcitys just tweeted contract signing GIF. So maybe later we get one.
Yeah. So and for SlasheR's buyout is probably not as obviously is not as much as Arcitys. I wouldn't think. But it's still you know, so it'd be tough for a trade there. But I'm not sure if I would love for it to be an actual trade. I would love for both the teams to be like, you know, we've traded Arcitys there for SlasheR. That would be real cool. That would be our first trade. Hopefully that happens. But
there's probably some cash involved as well, but you know.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, Austin, maybe, I don't know if you necessarily want to dive into this because, of course, the Arcitys thing, but, you know, it is what it is. Like, what about the decision to keep the rest of the guys? Because the ceiling is there. I think Sparta's a player that has probably been somewhat underrated. Hecz at his peak is fantastic, but we've seen it. We've seen peak Hecz, like, once for, like, a month in the last 2 years in the start of Cold War. And in Modern Warfare, he was great, don't get me wrong. Neptune, we know what he can do, but we didn't see it at all this season, pretty much anywhere he was. And even when he was good on this team at the end of the season in Vanguard, like, it's not like he was anything special. And they also dropped a seam as a result. But, you know, I do think that with Arcitys, with these guys, it's the same reason why I kind of want to see Clayster on Boston, is because I think that Clay can have the potential to get quite a lot out of those guys. I don't think that Arcitys has more potential to get more out of these players maybe than SlasheR did. But from an individual level, maybe his slaying numbers won't be as good. So there's a question to be had there. Obviously, we're looking at some of the numbers here on the roster builder. And also the fact that you're getting rid of a seam. I don't hate it. I think that in terms of firepower, you probably needed to get rid of a seam, because if you don't, then your slaying is just kind of non-existent. You have to take a chance that Neptune's going to be the slaying guy. But it's a bit of a risk, right? I mean, Lion, what are your thoughts? Because this struck me as just mid all over, especially because other teams, I think, are making improvements.
I mean, you look at this team, and in the last 2 years, all of them have been dropped at some point. And that makes me feel a little bit uneasy. But, like, what other options are there for the squad? Hecz had a reasonably okay season. He peaked at Major 2 and played really well, but that was really it. Neptune obviously had a tumultuous year, up and down, in and out, rough time. Spart got MVP, then got dropped, and then Arcitys has now been dropped. So what's the morale like? Do you think that they're looking for like a revenge tour? They need it. They need the dog to come out. But to be honest, right now, I don't really have any expectations for this team. We just got to see if they click on this new game, because usually that's what happens. Some rosters out of nowhere are good because of the game. And I'm hoping that this happens with this squad. That's all they can really hope for, to be honest.
Yeah, from what I know about the I'll talk about the core three, I guess. They're all really good friends, so sounds like they probably wanted to stick together and then run it back. So like that's probably where that came from. If we see the return of like the consistent hook, he could be like the slaying factor for that. I just don't know what we're gonna get out of like Spart and Neptune. So I guess like that's something we were just have to see like how that actually clicks for next year. I don't know how you guys think about that, but I just think like, could there have been upgrades out there? Sure, but I just don't know if the players were willing to like go take that risk on the upgrade, because I'm pretty sure they're like close to each other. So I don't think that was going to be like an option for them.
It's just interesting because some orgs are taking steps up. Like I think Minnesota, we'll talk their team in a second. I think like they've got a clear plan of like, yeah, we're going to be a dominant force. We're not here to settle to just make champs or even just miss out on champs. Like we're here to really compete with the best teams and do the best thing we can in free agency. And I think that Gorillas, like as soon as they extended all of their players, they probably painted themselves into this corner. But at the same time, and therefore realistic, like you're not going to be able to sell all of Hook, Neptune, Spart, like all of these guys the way you would have wanted to. But it was also interesting that they let Gunners go for free. And I thought maybe as a result, they were going to maybe keep Spart on the bench and try and bring in like a, maybe a Cammy or something, like pay a big buyout for a star flex player. But they've gone for Spart, who's kind of like, well, neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, it's tough to see for me, like really where the star power comes from, unless they do just click. I mean, it's a team that can click and be an underdog team, but I can't see them being like a consistent top contender. I feel like every year I look at the rosters, I'm like, yeah, that's like a top 6, top 8 team, but then I realize I've done that for every single team. And someone's got to be top 12. But actually this year it's not so difficult to define, because some of these rosters I'm seeing formed in the lower half are garbaggio. We'll see about that one. Should we move on? I mean, any final thoughts, boys, on this team?
I was just going to say final thoughts. The league seems less stacked than last year somehow. It's like the talent's more moved to like certain teams, and then some teams are left with not much.
Crim's out of the league, bro. Like Crim's on the bench or something. Like, yeah. Or, just stuck outside. You don't even, what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it's a fair point. And it's difficult to find a many us nowadays. Were you going to say something, Crone? Or?
No, I was going to say that I wish there was a way that they could have SlasheR and Arcitys, but I know that really wouldn't work. I don't know if I'm just saying that because of SlasheR's name, but no, I would have liked to see that, but I know it's not. I don't think that's really possible with the, both of them trying to be leader and they're both running the same role and those types of things. But no, that's about it. Hopefully something happens with this team. Like I do like all the players individually. We'll see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel you. All right, cool. It's time. We're going to go to ROKKR, because I think this team, like obviously as from a UK COD fan perspective, I'm kind of biased in favor of the team that they seem to be building there. But yeah, the roster of Afro, Attach, Bance and Cammy, I think looks really nice on paper. I think that realistically, given the free agents that are out there, this is probably some of the best moves they could have made. I like the idea that you're going to keep some of that UK European culture. You're not just mishmashing players from different regions, like, because Afro has not got experience teaming with NA players yet, apart from paulehx when he subbed in. So I feel like bringing Afro over to the States, I mean, well, obviously he's already in the States, but like over to a team that isn't the London team, makes sense not to just chuck in with a load of, like bombastic American players. Like with Cammy and Bance, I think that makes a lot of sense. Afro brings some slaying. Bance brings what he usually brings to an SMG role in terms of leadership, experience with Cammy. And I feel like Attach is one of the perfect guys to mesh with that, with the personalities that these guys will have. Now, look, they'll have had to pay a lot of money to get this team put together. The Afro thing can't have been cheap to lure him away from other offers that he might have had. Cammy, of course. I mean, what did you reckon, Crone? 200k, 150k buyout, something like that.
Yeah,
plus the wages they're paying.
More, to be honest.
Maybe more. Yeah, it could well be more given the other numbers we've heard. And then Cammy's Scottish, by the way, Juicebox. And then Attach, of course, that was paying him a lot of money to go back to Minnesota in the first place. So, yeah, I mean, I really like it personally. I think there are some potential risks, but in terms of firepower, I like where that's coming from. Attaches them NAO is a bit of a question whether that's going to work out properly. Down the line, they might feel like they might need one more change to really make this team where it needs to be. But I'm just really happy. And I know people roasted me so hard for saying that Afro needs to get out of London because it's a mediocre organization, but I'm going to stick by it. And I'm just super happy that Afro's out of there and he can actually show his potential and what he can do on a team that actually might be able to compete. Because I feel like outside of the top dogs that are sticking together and FaZe because they're FaZe, this is one of my favorite teams. But maybe I'm biased because I'm, for the UK. So, Austin, what do you think? Oh, you're muted. But you're muted back now.
There we go. I was actually muted. Damn. I'm going to do a little bit of a hot take. I actually think this could be an upgraded version of Toronto. I think the way that... So when I looked at Toronto, I thought they were only going to do one of two moves. I thought like maybe they would replace cleanx with Afro or replace Cammy with Scrappy. And this team is basically that, but... They did the replacement for cleanx with Afro, which I think is a decent move. I feel like that works. They both have a similar play style, and so I think this could definitely work. Afro is a little bit more vocal, and then you replace Insight with Attach. So I think Attach can do similar things as Insight. I think Insight is better at S&D, but I think Attach is a very capable main AR for this team. It relies on Cammy refining his form from Cold War. If he's able to do even close to that, and then Afro plays pretty well. I know he wasn't very good at champs, but he was very good at the beginning of the season and at the end of Cold War. If him and Cammy can be the stars of this team, Attach is being a solid leader in the back, and then Bance is honestly was the most underrated part I thought from the Toronto team. I thought it was a mistake letting him go, but maybe there's stuff I don't know on like the inside. Of course, there's obviously always something, but I thought he was a pretty integral piece to that team for how they played, and I think this could be a very, very good. I guess we can call this a European team. This would be a very, very good European team for the future.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think the dynamic of this team is like perfectly laid out. Bance, I think last year was probably like top 2 ICS players in the league. That was the one thing that was just ridiculous. Maybe stats wise, it wasn't crazy, but in like clutch situations, he was always pulling out 1v2s, 1v3s. Amazing. Afro, I feel like he's like cleanx, but probably like a little bit more efficient with his life. That might suit Bance's playstyle a little bit more cohesion as like an SMG duo. And then Attach, he proved last year that as an AR, he can play really well. He's quite a slow AR, aiming down sights, perfect. And then Cammy, you're right, he just needs to play at the same level he did last year or the year before. And this team could be, honestly, it looks like a top 3 team on paper, in my opinion. But we will see.
Top 3, that's optimistic, but I like it.
I would say like top 4, top 5.
I can see top 3. If they click, if they can click somewhat like Cold War, because this is pretty much they're going to be the 2 like players from Toronto that had a really good play style, and I don't know. I feel like they definitely can. Like I feel like that's their peak, but I feel like they're probably in the more like 4 to 6 range. But I can see them top 3.
Yeah, agreed. It relies like on Cammy and Afro being God mode, but I mean, you can say the same for every team's star players,
Exactly.
Yeah, I was worried for I like this team a lot, and this is probably the best overall roster moves this off season in my opinion. But I love this roster. I was worried for Afro for a little bit because I kind of thought that he might just stick to London and stay somewhere where he's comfortable and with his friends. But I'm glad that he went out there and I heard he was we know he was speaking to Toronto. I think someone told me he was even speaking to Gorillas and they offered him a bag. Could be wrong though. But I'm glad that he's gone out and spread his wings and found a really good team, because this is a really good team from top to bottom. You have a lot of firepower. You have Bance doing everything else. If Cammy plays, he doesn't even need to play at his Cold War form, but if he's anywhere near that, this team is insane. And I think I just thought about it, and I do think they could be top 3. I agree with you.
Yeah,
There's definitely a really high chance.
you got to tip Afro for actually taking the risk of like moving out of somewhere where he's like kind of not secure, but he has like a base there. So taking that risk of like going out there and doing that, it takes some balls. So props to him, man.
Yeah.
The money probably helped, but yeah, I agree. I'm just excited to see what he can do elsewhere because I mean, like maybe I've been guessing up for a while, and people say that he's not as good as I say he is. So maybe they're right, maybe I'm right. We'll see. At least he gets the opportunity to see on a different team. The org, I think that takes an. Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to add. I think ROKKR is like probably quite an attractive place for players to go. They seem like a really solid organization. They've built like quite a cult following almost. So
is Minnesota a place that people want to go there? I've never been to Minnesota.
This is the thing.
I will say no, but I don't think that's like a very big negative right now in terms of like players like recruitment.
Yeah.
But the organization itself seems amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the big loser of this potentially is the Toronto Ultra, right? Because Toronto now find themselves without Afro that they were meant to be getting. They were linked to Afro to be replacing Bance, right? Which would have been a real spicy SMG duo of Afro and cleanX. I don't know how well it would have worked, but I mean, look, nowadays, I don't even know if the roles matter so much just because, I mean, I'm just thinking of what Thieves did at Champs. Every player had a 1.1. Kenny, Envoy, no real aggro sub traditionally. Like, they kind of just did the job and played impeccably as a team. So I feel like, you know, the traditional roles idea of you need a slaying SMG, an aggro SMG, like a flex and a NER, maybe you can blur the lines a little bit nowadays in certain systems. But yeah, so Toronto find themselves with a bit of an unclear position. So Insights was maybe a few teams were asking about him, but they were definitely not going to get rid of both Insight and Cammy unless they were paid like obscene amounts of money. cleanX, of course, is going to stay. Scrappy, a no-brainer to bring in. But then they've got this SMG question, right? Which is a bit of a strange one because like Insight, Scrappy, cleanX, I don't mind that at all. I do still have my questions about how well Scrappy's going to fit in here from a chemistry perspective because like he's a very different player personality-wise than a lot of these guys are. And then in terms of you really need like an SMG slayer here, right? You need a guy that can potentially be what Afro was going to be. But Hecz, of course, he only played that one series with them, did a pretty respectable job, has obviously been good in challenges. I think Toronto have done a great job in developing this talent up through the challenger side. And now Vikkel, of course, is a key player that potentially is going to be targeted by Florida Mutineers. It could also be considered here as well, but yeah, I mean, Austin, what's your read on this? Because I think Hecz can be a decent player, and I always thought in my mind that maybe they were kind of preparing him to replace Bance down the line. But the reality is, I don't know if the slaying is going to be there where it needs to be, especially compared to what you described as like an upgraded Toronto, which is effectively what Minnesota have done. So spicy matchups between those two inbound, I'm sure.
Yeah, so So here's Hexy's stats, so you guys can see him from the amateur side. I don't think it was anything too crazy. His slaying was a little bit lackluster, but he was on a team that had decent slaying around him. The thing I'll judge him on the amateur side is that they were like a force, like winning wise. They had a really good record on LAN. So even though his individual stats probably weren't that impressive on the challenger side, his like actual record is. I don't think he's an upgrade over Bance, but maybe there's more chemistry to be found off of that because he just spent the entire season with Scrappy and he has history with Insight. So maybe that's what they're looking for. They have some chemistry there, some familiarity for Scrappy coming in as a rookie in the pro league. So that could definitely work. This I think probably puts a little bit more pressure on Scrappy to be more of that slayer on this team. Because you'll have cleanX, you'll have Insight. So Scrappy will be probably looked at to be the second star on this team, most likely. And then Hecz is going to have to fill like the Bance role. So the thing for Hecz is you have to not let the pressure, the fan pressure, get to you, and just stick to like good results. You know what I mean? Because like fans usually see like a 0.9 and they're very like hostile towards it. But at the same time, you have to remember like, if he does his job in setting up the stars, then the star players to do well, then he's doing his job. So who knows? This could definitely work. It will be interesting. it's definitely interesting to see two different, 3 European, 1 North American player teams, forming.
Yeah, I'm
How
not
about you, Cod?
sure. I'm not sure if this is like I feel like this is a bit of a lateral move for them, but I'm a big fan of Scrappy. I think for Hexy, I would guess that Toronto probably want him to be like the new generation Bance, where he's just doing, what Bance does, without the veteran leadership type thing. To be honest with you, I didn't really follow Hexy much in challenges. I was more following V-Cool, but I think if Hexy just does what Bance was doing, but maybe you can, he's a little bit, his thumb's a little bit younger, so he can slide cancel a bit more and win a few more gunfights. Maybe that could be good for them. As for the other two, I mean, that's a beast, man. I do like this team, but I don't think it's a huge upgrade. And I think them losing out on Afro was a huge hit to them. Like, I really think if they got Afro, they're kind of, this team, really is upgraded, in my opinion.
But we don't really know like the potential of Hexy. We've seen him play
Yeah, you're right.
one series in the CDL.
It's weird,
Same with
Florida.
Scrappy.
It was like the closest
Yeah.
throw ever. It was like 250, 249, 6532 or something.
It was a weird series. And we obviously saw him and Scrappy at the Pro-Am. They went 2-1, looked pretty good. I like the makeup of this team. It's just another one of those teams where it's like, where are they going to be? I have no idea. Scrappy obviously last year looked amazing when he did play. And he looked like he would fit that Cammy role perfectly. His slaying numbers crazy, damage numbers amazing. It's just like, who's going to be the team leader now? Do you guys have any ideas?
If I had to guess, Insight.
Yeah,
Kleenex is a little bit quiet. I don't picture him taking that role. So I think I've heard that Hexy was a little bit of the IGL for the Toronto Ultra Academy team. Like, he was the one that was calling the plays and stuff. So I would think either him or a combination of him and Insight. So that's who I would predict going into this next year.
Yeah. So out of the European /1 NA player teams, this is probably the second best. Right.
I would be inclined to agree, but anything could happen. Yeah,
It
I think
also
that
depends on what
Minnesota
London
really
does.
just took the whole. It's actually kind of spicy, the whole Battle of the North thing, right? Because it's actually been a good rivalry, and now like they've just swooped in and taken Afro from underneath them. Like it's gotta hurt to a certain degree. But
And
go
half
on,
their
Austin.
team.
And
And half
Kenny
their
and
team.
Bance.
Yeah.
They might as well grab Mikey B while they're at it. Jesus.
I mean, they might, right? They low-key might.
Yeah.
Austin,
Yeah,
you're gonna say about London, right?
Yeah, so like this team could be the second best European team. They could be the best. They can still be pretty like shock everyone next year. I don't want to like doubt them at all. I think it'll be pretty close between them and Minnesota. But it will be interesting to see what London builds, because there's still a lot of good prospects in the challengers if they want to go down that route. Like, I honestly wouldn't mind if Trey came back and then you get a combination of Beans and Wardy coming in as like the younger guys, and then keeping like a Nasty, because I'll post in a little some stuff for you guys to see on Beans and Wardy, because these guys were absolutely freaks. The one thing that I liked the most was Wardy actually had a 1.31 KD on LAN.
Jesus.
In Challenger, or the Challengers champs. He ended
He's SMG, right, too.
Yeah, so he had a
That's
1.31, he had a 1.38 in hardpoint, he had a 1.35 in S&D, and then he had a 1.22 in control, and that was at champs.
That's
so
crazy.
he had a 1.17 overall for the season on an SMG. And then when you look at Beans, I think Beans is a really good prospect as well. He had a 1.14 during the elites, had a 1.13 for the entire season. So both of them were really, really good. And if you take like another player from that side of the pond, you could do like a Vickle. You can do. They played with Furious. If you wanted to take someone with a little bit more experience, you could do like a Denza or Stevo. So there's a bunch of different options for them to build after. And they still have the potential of Gizmo, Nasty, Trey, whatever combination there. So there could be a bunch of different options for them to like build their team.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, yeah, London's a weird one. We can get to them in a second because there are some rumors going around there. The team I wanted to get to first is the subliners because, man, what is going on here? I mean, look, it's pretty much guaranteed they're going to take home a ring next season at this point, and Hydra's going to get his first. But I'm not sure this roster is really going to cut it because, I mean, look, Hydra, after all this talk, ends up here anyway. Could have gone to OpTic, might have been able to go to FaZe. But he's probably going to be on this team anyway. Now, what I really hope is that Hydra doesn't lock himself into a 3-year deal. Now, you know, maybe he will, and maybe that's the way to get the Ultra bag. But, I mean, man, the thing is, if you're Hydra, you've got to recognize that teams like, because FaZe, obviously, SlasheR wasn't the first option. They could maybe make further moves. OpTic might need an SMG very soon. You know, Hydra could be a guy to go there. So I think that Hydra's got to be careful here with the deal that he decides to go for, because if he does lock himself into a 3-year contract here, he might miss the boat on opportunities, potentially. So I think he's got to think about that. But at the same time, 500k a year for 3 years, it does set you up. So there's a trade-off to be had. Anyway, Kismet as the SMG duo. I like it. I think that they were really impactful the latter half of the last season. I think that there's no one that I would be confident replacing Kismet with that I think is a guaranteed slam dunk upgrade. Kismet's never going to be a superstar player, but when he's on form, he can be very impactful and a perfect counterpart to what Hydra should be. So I think that's fine. The Skies move, I like, honestly, bringing in an AR like Skies, super potentially impactful on his day. It's really this flex position where I think the question marks remain, right? Priester wasn't great last year, hasn't been great for quite a while. Obviously is still quite highly regarded because otherwise he wouldn't be getting thrown into potential teams like this. You mentioned, Crone, that maybe a major maniac, or I was even thinking maybe a gunless, right? Like I don't know if the team would want to do that and where the leadership is and stuff like questions like that, but Gunless brings more potential upside than Priester, in my opinion, and probably would have made this team on its day an actual contender. Maybe they still are, but I'm not as sold as I feel like I should be on this team. It's a bit of a weird mishmash of players, but I guess that they think that this is going to be the way to go. Not confirmed, of course, things can change. But yeah, the numbers here, given the fact that Skies and Hydra will have had great numbers last year, don't exactly paint the greatest picture. Chrome, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I honestly like Hydra, Kismet, and Skies. It's not bad. It's not amazing, and I could be hating, so chat, you can roast me, but I'm not a huge fan of Priester. Like, I'm a fan of him, but I don't think that he's like, you know, a really, really good. I feel like he hasn't been like that good since BO4 Modern Warfare. Like, so I mean, and then you have to look at the list of the players that were the leftovers, and there really isn't that much. You know, you have Major Maniac, you have like Gunless, like you said, but Gunless is probably the best option on paper, but I'm not sure if Hydra would and the other teammates would get along with Gunless. But there really wasn't much for them to pick unless they go to Europe or maybe get like a challenger player, which I think is risky because the team's already mid as it is with those three, and I feel like getting a challenger player would be a little bit more risky than if the team was already good. But yeah, I'm not sold on Priester, and I haven't been for a few years now. And I could be just hating, I don't know. But yeah, this roster's I mean, it's alright. It's nothing special.
Mid, dude. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I really like the SMG duo. End of last year, one of the strongest duos in the league. Hydra, obviously amazing. Kismet doing all the intangibles, getting like 100 seconds hill time while still being like the top slayer. My opinion on Priest is kind of sort of the same as Crone, but I feel like it's a little bit unfair because the last 2 years he hasn't stayed the same role the entire year. He's had to swap in and out halfway through the season. In 2021, it's when Standy came in, he switched from the SMG to the flex. And then the same thing happened last year when Havoc came in. And so I feel like he's just not really able to like get a good chance to finally find his form on a certain role. So if he's going into this team as the flex or the AR, we don't really know yet. Will Skies be the main AR if he is on this team?
Yes.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I feel like
I just would like to see him get the opportunity for the whole year to be able to play in that role and then find his footing. And he's got a stronger SMG duo than he's had in the last 2 years as well. So they might play in his favor.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but I feel like paulehx might have burned a bridge on the flank here. You know, like I feel like he's probably a better pick than Priester, in my opinion, as a flex player for the team. But I'm not sure how his relationship was with Hydra before that. You know, judging from the flank, is probably not that great. But I feel like a bridge was definitely burnt there, and paulehx could have had a pretty good chances maybe starting here if the flank thing didn't happen and whatever happened in the season. But yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to say about it.
I don't think the flank really did much, honestly. I think like there's all this stuff you saw like a fraction of like the stuff that was actually happening behind the scenes. And like all that stuff was already being said behind the scenes. Like that was not none of that was a secret. You know what I mean? Like that they already knew how they felt about each other. It wasn't like anyone that was watching that wasn't really like surprised, especially like the Crim stuff. Like you kind of expect Crim to be like more out front like that. I just don't think like Paul would be on this team if Hydra was there. You know what I mean? Like I just don't feel like that team worked last year, and I think they wanted to like kind of like restart. So I don't think it's bad. I mean, it could be a little bit better. I think realistically, what they're doing right now is they're banking that Preston is on the up and up. And something with Preston is he actually is pretty vocal. When he worked with us, he has a way he can be that person that kind of like pushes his brand of Call of Duty, like how he wants to play it, like what we did during Modern Warfare. So that could work if he goes up. So it's like kind of like high risk, high reward with him, just based off of his actual current form. With Kismet, he played terrific last year. Hydra, I really don't think Hydra had I feel like he either went here or OpTic or like maybe like that Minnesota team. I don't really feel like there was like too many options. So he was like just like he has derail in New York. He's kind of comfortable in New York, so I didn't really think he was going to be leaving. Honestly, I thought that was pretty much where he was going to be. And then I don't know. It could work. Skies is a good main AR. That's a good piece. Hydra can be a good slaying SMG. That's a good piece. Kismet played terrific as that like selfless SMG last year. So there's good pieces to this puzzle. They just have to put it all together. So. It'll be interesting how they actually do that next year.
Yeah, quick comment here. I know you mentioned also in the article, Crane, about the whole Daryl thing. Like, I can't really imagine why Daryl would be leaving New York if Hydra's going to stay. But you say potentially as a free agent looking to go elsewhere, or do you know any more on that?
Yeah, he could go elsewhere. I think, if I remember correctly, there's a chance he could go to Seattle, I think, if Phoenix leaves.
Okay.
But I mean, I think there's probably a higher chance that he stays with Hydra. I'm not sure if he's decided yet, but who knows?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because they dropped the whole coaching team seemingly to like commit to the Daryl thing, and then he's gonna.
I mean, they dropped everyone, bro. Like Gershwin,
they did actually drop everyone.
Lost all their coaches. They lost half their team. Jesus.
Yeah. NYS capital L right now. Yeah, I mean,
I kind of do wish that they got SlasheR. Like I feel like he was like, you know, you put SlasheR on there instead of Priester in there. That's a good team. But obviously, I don't know if they got outbid or if they even bid at all. But
would have been a bit weird with roles maybe. But like, yeah. I kind of know what you mean. You can make Skies can run a flex. Like I do remember when Skies was back in Modern Warfare, he would actually run an SMG on some Petrograd Dom and was actually really good with it. So like Skies,
we don't even know the meta next year either. So it's so hard for these teams. Like, bro, we don't even know the meta. Like we went into this year not knowing that subs were going to run ARs for.
Gotta be flexible, you know. You gotta have the flexibility on the team. Yeah. So yeah, that's why teams like Minnesota are quite exciting. So local rivals for New York are Boston, of course, and I think that they may come out on top this transfer window. They may not. The roster, as it presently stands, only has 3 players that we're pretty convinced of. We knew that Nero and Vivid were going to stay. Okay, we've got a 5-man lineup here, which is pretty nice. But yeah, Nero and Vivid, and we were theorizing before. We pretty much expected this is what they were going to do, right? I think that a lot of us, when we predicted this Boston team, had something similar to this with a flex player, the likes of Attempt and Awakening, a gunless, I think were some of the key players that people thought. And then an AR either being Methods or, I mean, Clay was like, I thought from day one that Clay could be an interesting option here. And I know that Clayster is going to get a lot of You know, people think Clay's washed or whatever. And look, he's coming towards the end of his career, there's no doubt. But what I don't get from the community sometimes is that I see a lot of people saying, oh, wow, Vanguard was such an inconsistent game. You can't read anything into it. FaZe shouldn't have dropped Arcitys. They should have run it back, like all this type of stuff. And in the same breath, they will then say, Clayster, wow, he was terrible in Vanguard, dropped a 0.85. Like, this guy's washed, he's got to go. I'm like, hang on a second here. We can't have both at the same time. Like, if Clayster... You know, Clayster was bad last year, yes, but he was on a completely dysfunctional team for a very short period of time and didn't really get to prove his worth on that game. So it's like, you know, those things can't align. So I'm still going to give Clayster one more year of a good go of things, and then we'll see. If he's washed, he's washed, but I think he deserves one more year. And I've said for a while, I would like to see him with Nero and Vivid and Awakening especially to see what he could get out of these players, because if I'm the GM, and I know that Methods and the Zin City is super strong, and I think that Methods is such a divisive player because a lot of people really love him, and for good reasons, great personality for the scene, very solid player. But if you just run this team back, minus TJ plus Awakening, do they get that much better? Like, I can't really see it. If they might get somewhat better, but I don't think they become a contender all of a sudden. They might not with Clay, but I think that there's a possibility that you at least give yourself a bit more upside. You know, it's a question to me as to what Boston, what their aspiration level is. Are they happy with improving 5 to 10% of last year? Or do they want to shoot for a team that could click and really perform? Because I don't think a one-man change here is going to be enough to make that happen. But, you know, maybe I'm just a Methods hater. I don't know.
No, I feel like Clay, it's more than just his numbers. Every year, like, players talk about how he shows up to LAN events with, like, he has nothing on his shoulders. It's all about just, like, focusing on the current match, not worrying about, like, issues they have in the team. And I think, like, that sort of preparation heading into a game is completely underrated. His leadership, his obvious, like, winning mentality over the years, I think regardless, he's a good pickup for a squad full of, like, heavy slayers. Like, Awakening probably needs a player like that more than anyone on his side, because he had a great year, obviously. Well, to be honest, he's had 3 great years, numbers-wise, but he hasn't really had that winning mentality on his squad. He's been on Florida the whole time. So I feel like those two as a combination could actually be quite effective, having that extreme slaying and then the great leadership and, like, mentality from Clay with, like, the SMG duo that proved to be really strong at the end of the year. So I can see that team being quite cohesive.
Yeah, I could see it working. It would put a lot of pressure on Awakening becoming like a godlike slayer though. Because like what Nero and Vivid have is aggression, but if you look at their like engagements, they're on the lower side. I have this thing called tests, which is like the percentage of your engagements that end in a kill or assist, and like they have it like sees how many of your engagements end positively. So like those guys, they're on like the lower end of like the tests that I use. Now I look at things like if you're aggression, you have a lot of engagements, so someone's gotta like be coming out on the kills, be coming out on the trades. You know what I mean? Not have so many deaths that are not traded. So like that would put a lot of pressure on one of these two SMGs becoming like a Slayer instead of just like a relentless SMG, and it would put a lot of pressure on Awakening to be like that superstar Slayer. So I like it. I don't mind it. I like Clay would have to hit his form again. You know what I mean?
But he has the aggression, like, naturally to keep up with these guys. It's just, can he finish those kills? Or will he need to? Like, will he go first and then allow Awakening to play the role that he usually plays, which is pick up kills, like finish kills?
You would have to. Yeah. So like for some statistics, Nero had a 54% test, which is below average. He had a 65.6% non-traded kill, which is much below average. Vivid had a 53.9 test, and then 66.1 non-traded kills. So both of those were like really down. Their KAD, which is like it takes into account assists into your like overall KD, was also well below average. So those guys get a lot of engagements, a lot of like their Slayer ratings high, but like a lot of their engagements end in deaths. And then if you look at Awakening, his test is 58%, his non-traded kills is 70, and then his Slayer rating is just as higher than the actual SMGs. So he would have to maintain that form of being a Slayer. But ClaySir had one of the league's worst non-traded kill percentages and one of the league's worst test ratings and Slayer ratings. So he had a really down year this year. Obviously, like this year, you can put some salt on it. It's not he really wasn't in the team for very long. So like he'll have to be kind of what he was to New York in Cold War at the beginning of that Cold War year. So like if he's in that range and then Awakening still being that high Slayer, that takes less pressure off of one of the SMGs to actually be a Slayer instead of just like a engagement machine. But probably one of those guys is going to have to like turn a corner as well if they want to be like a top team, you know?
Yeah, but weren't those the SMG stats for Nero and Vivid? What was it when they were together?
So that would just be stage 4 and champs, right?
Yeah, because Nero had a tough time playing with Capsule. Like his stats were way down during that period.
So I'll just bring up stage 4 real quick. It's like loading up, but I believe off the top of my head it didn't change too much. It stayed pretty where it was. So it's loading right now.
It was his SND though that went crazy. Like Nero for some reason had like a 1.4 at the end of the year.
Even at stage 4 he had a 0.7 in S&D.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he had a 0.7 in stage 4 for S&D, Nero. And yeah, so actually he had one of the very low non-traded kill percentages. He had 65%. And then he had a 55 tests, and then Vivid again 55 tests, 67% non-traded kill. So these guys, like, they are engagement machines, but one of them is probably going to have to be a Slayer. Like, you can't both just be running like full steam ahead and like not getting your deaths traded, because like we got untraded kills, which is amazing. That needs to stay, but now we need to see traded deaths so we can see the percentage of deaths that are just wasted, that aren't traded, that aren't useful for the team. Because the non-traded kill is cool for the ARs, for the SMGs it's a little bit more of a pinch of salt. Untraded deaths, like untraded ones that are just you die and no one trades it, or traded deaths, like one of those statistics needs to be in this next game. That would be a real like that would be super nice for like the data community if something like that came out. But yeah, so those were those guys' ratings. And then for the entire season, I believe Nero had that's still stage 4. I don't even know if it will load now, but yeah. So those guys, just one of them will probably just have to turn more into like a Slayer instead of like an engagement machine. Because yeah, even for the entire season, Nero had a 0.88 in S&D and Vivid had a 0.87 in S&D. And then in Control, Nero had a 0.89 and Vivid had a 0.9. So like, yeah, the engagements are nice, but someone has to be that Slayer. And even in on Hardpoint, a 0.96 for Nero and a 0.9 for Vivid. So these guys are really fast. They're very like engagement based, which can be good, but like just because you have a lot of engagements doesn't mean those engagements have impact. So you got to get the most out of it. Make sure your deaths are traded. Make sure your Slayers, you're setting it for Slayers to be able to trade you. So that would put a lot of pressure on Zinni, Clay, or Awakening, whatever combination of the 3 they might be getting, you know?
Yeah, I agree. This is the thing where I don't know if there's any truth behind this, Chrome, but I was kind of wondering, because the leak came out that SlasheR was going to go here, and then turned out immediately that wasn't the case. I'm like, was that just never the case, or was it that Boston wanted SlasheR and were then like, oh, FaZe wants SlasheR now, so we can't have him anymore? Because like SlasheR would be, as we're saying, they maybe lack a bit of firepower. SlasheR could have given them that. Now, whether I think this roster lasts with SlasheR in the team, I don't know. But it would have probably been, it might have been what they wanted to do, but
yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Boston did not ask about SlasheR. They definitely did. You know, SlasheR's an incredible player. They probably asked how much his buyout was. I don't know how much, what the budget is over in Boston. I don't know what their sports teams are like. I don't know if they sign on a budget.
Yeah, it's a pretty big market.
I know the Craft guy is a lot of money, but you know, I'm not sure if they could compete with Gorillas or whatever. But I would assume they definitely looked at SlasheR at very minimum. I would have loved to see SlasheR on this team, but I think from the players left over, I think Clayster fits like a glove on this team, if I'm being honest. I feel like last year they lacked a lot of like real leadership from a player like that Clayster can bring. At times I felt like especially the SMG players were like on completely different books, let alone pages. Like they were just doing the randomest shit. If you looked at the minimap, so I think Clayster here, like you guys said, if he can play to the level, not his peak, because obviously he's not going to get there, but you can get a good Clayster, is leading them and can keep them composed, and I think he's a perfect fit. I know the stats aren't as good as his methods, but you know, to be honest here.
Yeah,
Sorry, hold
okay.
on. Yeah. Sorry, what were you just saying? Jesus.
No, I think we've wrapped it up. I think we've wrapped it up in Boston. We can move on. I mean, the thing is for me is that if methods is to go, like, because right now obviously the thing is Crone that either Clay is going to go to Boston or Legion, right? Like if Clay was to go here, then do you think methods just goes to Legion, or is that not so clear?
I don't know. I guess that's up to Donny Temp. Honestly, I don't know. I have no idea what Paris might do. They'll probably just wait until everything, the dust settles, and okay, we'll have you, and you. And I mean, Methods has a buyout until the game releases, so they will wait.
That's a great point, actually. That's a great point. They will
If
not
Paris
do that quick.
If Paris do want Methods, then they'll wait until 2 weeks after October 28th.
You gotta tip it, man. You gotta tip. I mean, it makes sense. Like business-wise, I would do that. But it is what it is. So, okay, let's do Florida, because I think Ogre 2 may or may not be in the chat. So we're gonna drop some truth bombs on what Florida should do. Interesting team. Now, when you first did your article, Crane, you weren't really sure what was going on. Since then, you've kind of heard an updated possibility.
Yeah. So before we go anywhere, usually I like super confirm things that I ask 1,000 people, make sure this is happening. But this is my last one, so I was like, fuck it, we'll just throw that out there. And after I dropped the article, a few people mentioned this roster. I think it was at very least a roster they considered, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this is the roster. Which obviously it completely changes. I don't know if it's been shown on stream, but it obviously completely changes the London roster that I kind of guessed. But yeah, like this might or might not happen. Like I said, I haven't like super confirmed it with anyone. This is just what I heard like during the stream. But this is definitely an interesting roster. I'll let you talk about it first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. I think like Vickle maybe doesn't appear on the roster builder or something, so we maybe can't bring it up on that screen. But I mean, yeah, I'm confused. I think we have this. We just don't have Vickle. I mean, look, it's a bit weird to me because they retain Dave Paddy, but then they bring back Benjaminic anyway. So I'm like, what's going on there from the many opposition? And then, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I think Nasty and Gizmo can be good players, but I'm kind of wondering what the kind of plan is here, because it's like London is the hotbed for European COD talent, and hopefully they bring in Beans and Wardy. Bloody better do. And then Florida next year just go pick those guys up. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how quickly Florida will confirm this stuff, but I mean, they've really got to. It's a classic Florida maneuver, right? They're going to get players they can acquire relatively cheaply, but I do think that they can build a better roster than what is being proposed. But they probably don't have that possibility within their budget, right? Like there are guys like Gunless, of course. I would love to see Crim as the main AR on a team like this. Now I know budget-wise and what Crim wants to be paid is probably not going to happen. But if you are Florida and Crim is out there as a potential free agent as he is, he wants a spot. I'm sure the Florida man memes with Crim would be spectacular. They might not be able to budget it, but at the same time, any team you put Crim with, if you give him some choice on which players he gets, like he will build a team that at some point can at least contend. And given the other rosters are so good right now, like I hate to say it, but I wonder if the competitiveness of the league this year actually goes down compared to last year. Looking at some of these teams.
Do you really think for the value that probably Mike is getting on his contract, you don't think he gets more value out of that than what you would have to pay Crim? Honest question. As like a GM perspective, look at it like that. Do you think you get more value out of Mike for the price compared to Crim, because I would argue
Price
that
per
Mike
dollar, I think you do.
I would argue Mike played better than Crim this year at points, especially at the tail end of it. I thought he was good. I thought he was decent on Florida, and I thought he had moments in Minnesota, whereas Crim was kind of not 100% this year. In the past, yeah, obviously, like Crim's obviously had that edge, but even dating back to like Black Ops 4, it was pretty close between the two of them, and obviously Crim probably had the edge the last 2 years in Modern Warfare and Cold War, but Vanguard, I think it was probably pretty even again. I don't think it's too much of a big difference. And I think Mike's like the kind of guy who's very vocal, very like he's gonna like Minnesota always talks about it, Formal always talks about it, how he fucking has like this random spurt of just like it's never over, like hype speech, you know what I mean? So like I feel like that could work because you gotta remember Gizmo, this will be his second year in the league. Nasty, second year in the league. And who was the fourth guy you think is going to be on this team?
Vickle, I think.
Vickle. So he's a rookie. So like you would have younger players, and then you would have Mike, who's in the position to be like the Lamar. You know what I mean? So I don't hate that main AR. I think Gizmo was a little like Gizmo's I think Nasty played very, very well last season. I think Vickle is an excellent pickup if on the SMG. I'm guessing Nasty's going to be the second SMG again. Gizmo, obviously, he had a lot of like personal issues last year that I don't even know. I just hope everything's doing better now. But he kind of he had a real high and then he didn't really meet that high again. I think it was because of everything else going on, but that would be the only question I would have on the roster, you know?
So who would you rather have, Major Maniac or Zero?
I think it's pretty similar. I think it depends because maybe this team wanted to Trey wanted to stay. Maybe Trey wanted to stay in London, and then these guys didn't want to because you got to remember like relationships and everything. So I think Mike and Trey are pretty similar. I think Mike's probably a better S&D player, and I think Trey's a better respawn player.
And would you rather have Vickle or Afro?
I mean, obviously Afro, but I don't think Afro. I think Afro was in the tier like above for like teams that were recruiting him. You know what I mean? Like he had some elite rosters recruiting him. So
it's pretty much just their peak is London or less.
Which I don't think is bad.
London
I don't think it's bad.
Okay, but like I don't think they're going to be that good.
I don't know what you're saying. It's not realistic for every team in the league to go into this offseason and think, I want to win 3 championships next year. You know what I mean? You got to think, can we find 2 or 3 pieces on this roster, take a risk on some guys? Can we find some diamonds in the rough, build a roster steadily, maybe find a good pickup during the season, and then maybe be in contention for like a tournament or 2, you know what I mean? For like actual winning a championship. So is this team that? I would like to see how like Nasty and Gizmo and Vickle kind of like progress down like their professional path, you know. So maybe you stick with like 2 or 3 of those guys, and then maybe you have a pickup that kind of like transforms the roster, just like how rosters have been in the past couple of years. But I don't hate this roster, like how it's constructed for what they are looking to do this season.
Yeah, I just don't see it being top tier right now.
No, yeah,
for sure. I mean, look, I agree with that philosophy, and I think the Florida are an org that has to do that. At the same time, the frustrating thing for Florida is like they had their success in Modern Warfare, and then Skies and Awakening have kind of just been wasted, and they never got any money for them. They just walked away as free agents, and like they weren't able to really capitalize on the players that they found, and did a good job finding. So I think the Florida can be like they're not going to hit every time on the players that they get, but I feel like I would prefer to see them. As I say, I think the Major Maniac pick is pretty good. You get some leadership, you get some search and destroy. I don't mind that at all. And I think the Vickle idea is kind of good. And okay, Gizmo Nasty. But like, okay, we've seen Gizmo Nasty this past season. We've seen them for a season. Like, what I would like to see them do is go for the type of players that, the Wardies and the Beans of the world, right? The 2 players we mentioned earlier, because those players are, you know, we talked before, I think the show even started, or right at the start, about how Paris Legion a few years ago had the opportunity to get Hydra, to get Pred, to get Afro, to get all these players before anyone wanted them and before anyone had heard of them. They could have signed them. They passed up the opportunity because they didn't think they were good enough off Challengers results, and they paid the price. Paris could have done a great job. They could have signed those guys and sold them on a year later for big bags. They didn't do it, and this is the thing. You signed Gizmo Nasty. I don't think we've seen the best out of those players, but I think that we've seen that those guys are not exactly going to be the next Simpa Beezy or, you know, Celium, for example. Whereas Wardy and Beans, like, who knows, right? I mean, those are the next coming of the top players from the Challenger side. So those would be the guys that if I was a GM, I would probably be more keen to take a chance on, because I think that there's more potential there that you actually, you know, find a real diamond in the rough than a player that's been in the league for one season and hasn't really done anything spectacular. That could have more upside than he currently has, but is still more of a known quantity. So it's a question to ask.
Counterpoint though is Nasty was literally the number 2 player on our challengers ranking for Modern Warfare, and he was number 2 in the Cold War one. Sorry. And he put up
Nasty's a good one.
Yeah, he had a 1.26 in challengers.
Nasty,
so like,
Wardy, Beans trio.
I thought he could have had a better rookie year, but I also thought, like, I've seen so much potential in him that I like that pickup. Gizmo was more one of those questions. That's why I said, like, Gizmo, if you wanted to go after Beans, that's where I would see that. You know what I mean? I don't think we saw the best out of Gizmo for the complete season. I don't know if we're going to get a complete season. You know what I mean? But I think the Vickle pickup is smart. I think the Nasty pickup is a buy low, hoping he still progresses. Same thing as Gizmo. And I think you're getting Mike as the veteran leadership. So I agree with you, though, that like maybe a Wardy or a Beans, but who knows if they have other offers that are more enticing for them, you know?
Agreed. And I think that brings us to London, probably, that I guess is going to be the last team we'll discuss here, because London are unclear. I don't know, the roster you put out initially with kind of Gizmo there, that's probably not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah, I was just guessing there, to be honest.
I mean, what do you think they do now?
I mean, there's got to be a Wardy and Beans, right? Like, if Wardy and Beans do not get picked up, Jesus, I'm going to be pissed, because those dudes were insane, like Austin just said. But yeah, their London lineup ahead on there was literally just a stab in the dark. paulehx, I had heard, was like seriously been looked at by them. Zero is kind of like, you know, you could probably guess that he's going back. But now that I've heard the Florida one, it's kind of like, okay, they have potentially 2 spots open here, so it has to be right. Who are they losing? They're losing Gizmo, who's a flex, and Nasty, who's SMG. I mean, Beans and Wardy fit like a glove.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's, you know, it has to be those 2.
Now, who did they get as their other sub in this case? If they lose both Nasty and Afro, they would need another sub here.
I think they go. I think they go challengers. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think they go for because you could do a guy like Brezzy, who's run every role. You could do a guy that's teamed with them in the past. Like there's Denza, there's Vortex, there's tons of guys that have teamed with both of these players in the past that could fit in. So that's why I don't because like Beans' opportunities and Wardy's are kind of you don't see them really on Boston or Toronto, now Florida, so they're kind of closing in to where we're going to see another reincarnation of like this year's London, where they took 3 rookies or like 3 young guys and Trey to like do that again next year and see what you get out of it. Because these guys, so Beans played with Furious, Vortex, and Weeman for like the majority of the season. Wardy played with Maple, Harry, and Denza. So I can see there's a world where one of those guys, like one of the teammates of those guys, gets on this roster.
I mean, they could also look at America. I don't know if they're looking at paulehx, they're obviously open to the idea. You know, there's still Seam and Havoc and
yeah.
So who knows? I actually didn't even put 2 to 2 together that, you know, if Nasty and Gizmo are leaving, and that would probably mean that paulehx might be chalked as well, you know, on that team. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen between those 2 teams? Hopefully, I might figure it out over the next couple of days. See what happens.
It's gonna be interesting.
Weird spot.
Yeah.
I mean, last year they came in with a really solid squad. This year it's like complete unknown. What roster would you want to see? Would you want to see that Beans and Wardy squad? Is that
Yeah,
the
I'd
best
wanna see-
option?
Yeah, Beans, Wardy, Zero, and then I don't know who the fourth, the second SMG would be.
Yeah, I mean, you can build a team that's not too dissimilar to how last year's team was built, right? Because I think a lot of us saw last year's team and said there's actually a lot of upside that I think a lot of people didn't see. And we saw that manifest at the start of the season, right? And I feel like they can build a similar team with a lot of similar upside. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, I don't really care about particular organizations. I'm more interested in supporting particular players, and I'll always support the UK boys. And we're getting more and more UK boys in the league, and of course Pred and that as well.
We've been on what, like 4 teams now of UK players or European players?
Yeah, I guess so. Like if this is the case, Hydra New York, and then ROKKR, Ultra London. You know, we're getting there. Of course, Pred, you know, outside of NA as well. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
The last team is Vegas, baby. Vegas
We
Legion.
could build our own team here, like who knows?
But I think this is what we'll do. Yeah. Do you want to just bring up the roster builder, Omar, and we'll just like wing out a team because they could do anything. We know that Temp's going to be there. That's the guy. But after this, like, what do you do? I think like when it comes up on the screen, I'll kind of just leave it open because the names that you mentioned were TJ and Venom. Being
that was like early
links.
On, so I wouldn't.
Yeah, but this could be not anymore.
I wouldn't put too much stock in that.
I would say TJ has a pretty good chance there. Like I think TJ like makes a lot of sense here. I think that TJ said on stream he doesn't want to really sit on a bench, even if it was OpTic's bench. He'd prefer to start, and if he's going to get a spot anywhere, it's going to be here with old buddy Temp. So I feel like Temp and TJ is very viable, Omar. Outside of that, though, I really don't know what they're going to do.
Who knows, man? I mean, I was one player I actually forgot about until now was Standy. Like, he doesn't really have a home right now. I don't think, unless he's on Florida. But for me, I don't know. Who would you rather, Asim or Havoc, or do you think both can live in peace and harmony on a team together? Not that they're toxic or anything, but they play aggressive role. Do you think that they can play on the same team together?
Yeah.
You think?
I personally think so.
Seaman Havoc.
Would you rather one of them and TJ on SMG? Because I think TJ wants to run SMG this year.
I would get Standy. I think.
Or Standy.
So the full squad right now would be what? Temp, potentially Methods, Tej, and Asim. Or
I would take Asim and Havoc.
That team would get fried, bro. Oh my God.
I would take Asim and Havoc over Standy and TJ. I think if you did Asim, Havoc, Temp, and then another AR who can slay, I feel like that team's the best you can make out of all that combination.
Okay, I mean, I like where this is going. Like, I think it's worth taking a chance on Standy because of the upside. But that's just me, maybe.
What if they just bait us all and bring back last year's squad? Bring in John.
I'll turn off the stream. Never tune it ever again.
Put 2.
That would officially end Crone's interesting card.
No, I'm deleting the account.
Oh man, these are some interesting players that you bring up though here, because I kind of agree that it's Temp and then like maybe 2 of these 4 that we've got here. Plus a main, whoever that is.
Well, Donnie was saying he wants the main.
But he wants the main, does he? Interesting.
Yeah, that's what he was saying on the flank.
That would be really interesting, actually.
So then we could actually look for a fixed player.
Damn, if
I mean, Gunless is out there still, I believe. Still Gunless.
True. Gunless is out there.
I mean, Gravity's out there. I know he's main AR. Who else? Crimsix. Crimsix is out there.
Bro,
there's a lot of players.
Team. They're gonna pay him 100k.
Yeah, we haven't even looked at challenger players yet, but I think someone said that they don't want challenger players this year.
If this is where Clay ends up, I wouldn't be upset with this roster. If you took Standy and TJ off and put Clay, Temp, Havoc, Asim, obviously I think you would probably look for a good substitute, and you would probably be pretty active during the transfer windows. But I
That's
feel
not a
like
bad roster, really.
I feel like that's better than every Paris roster we've ever seen. Maybe obviously they had like a decent start to like Modern Warfare.
You gotta
but
respect the Oceania. You got 2 Oceania people in here. You can't, disrespect us like that.
the start they had in Modern Warfare was good. Like they got screwed in that one tournament where they played online and they had to play from Vegas against a Texas team on a Texas server. But this could.
Rose
makes a good point in chat. Yeah.
Seam and Clay probably. I don't think they see eye to eye, and I don't.
Okay, but if your career's on the chopping block, I don't give a fuck who you hate, love, want to fucking punch. You're sucking it in and fucking dealing with it. You know what I mean?
And Asim has a buyout, and it's not expiring anytime soon. So.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Good luck with Paris buying him. But I think if there were no buyouts, that is probably the best team that you could probably come up with.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that maybe the Asim thing won't happen, even though I actually think he could be a very valuable piece here. But yeah, I don't know. If I was even people talking about Assault, because I was saying that earlier, that like Assault could be an interesting one. Oh my god, this team you're building, Omar, is actually nice. Honestly, throw Jimbo in there online from Toronto. Wow, now that is a team. That is an online team. Yeah, so I think even people, like Assault is also kind of going to be on the cusp of the main AR roles. But it's interesting if Temp wants to run a main, because that's what really he said on the does. Flank. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they'll end up like that, but like this trend of these kind of flex players becoming mains, like it's really interesting for what it means to some of these guys.
That's why.
Well, he was just saying on when he was talking about it, he was just saying he wanted to be a main AR this year, and they put him. They got Fellow, who's an SMG, to play main AR, and he was just like, "Well, what the fuck." So like, I just know he did want to run that role. So like, who knows if he does this year? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
people
I
say
get
Mohawk
that.
as well. Like Mohawk, that's another good shot.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I think he's been on the border of getting into the league for a while. It'd be nice to see another 4 teams, but it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, look, those are our thoughts on the teams for now. I think that's pretty much where we're going to leave it. I don't know if there's anything really else on my list. I don't really think there was. I think we were just going to discuss the rosters. But I mean, yeah, thoughts, boys, on this rostermania. It's been crazier than I think I predicted it to be. If you'd have, I mean, how many teams are going to stick? 3 teams out of 12, which is probably, I mean, I would have said 3 or 4 would stick, probably 4. So turns out 3 are sticking. But it's not been free from drama as it never is. It's been one of the more entertaining ones, honestly.
Yeah, I thought this one was going to be not for me, but I thought this one was going to be a little bit more less chaotic. A lot of people were saying, "Man, this one's going to be crazy. Like it's going to be the best one ever." I was like, "Man, no way! Like the Modern Warfare rostermania was the best we will ever see. Like brand new teams, brand new brands, logos, names. Like people building super 5v5 teams. We had 2 substitutes on every team, and nothing will beat that." And then what we had, the Cold War one was when it dropped to 4v4, so every team at least dropped 1 player. That was another crazy one. And then last year we had the MV and OpTic merging. I can't remember what other roster moves we had, but there was probably some other crazy. Oh, the 100 Thieves team. Oh wait, no. There was other crazy shit that I can't remember. But this one was actually decent. Like I actually think it might have even been better than last year. I don't know. I have to go back and look at some of last year's moves. But no, this one was mostly drama filled, with the OpTic thing and Arcitys as well. But I really like the ROKKR roster. I think that's my favorite one that we saw come to light this year.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, my final thoughts are, it was pretty crazy that only one team during the whole rostermania were in talks, and that was LA Thieves. Obviously, they stuck together because they're the world champs, but OpTic almost fell apart. We're looking at other options. Seattle, players from their team were almost poached. Like, people wanted, FaZe, everyone was saying Sib to FaZe. which I have no idea how that would have gone. It would have been a ridiculously strong slaying team, but I don't know if that would have been enough. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with a lot of these teams. I'm just kind of worried that it's going to be a little bit more top heavy than last year. And especially if the game is more competitive, it might just be a pretty similar sort of storyline to Cold War, which might not be bad, but it just does give like the top teams more of the opportunity to win events. So maybe Austin, you might be in the money next year. We'll see.
Nice.
No comment from him, no comment.
Any words, Austin? Because by this time next week, we might actually be able to discuss things in a bit more detail.
Who knows, man? I don't even know. So yeah, I don't think I have no clue for my team. To be completely honest, I have no clue. So I'm the wrong person to ask. On the other teams, I honestly think you're gonna have like a couple of teams that probably like ready to announce their rosters, but I don't think it's gonna be like overwhelmingly. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of teams ready to do that yet. So maybe there's another like week or two of like rostermania like this where it's just kind of like slow, but hopefully it'll kind of spice up by the time the next podcast happens.
Agrees. I'm sure it will. And that's the thing, like whatever happens, this year's going to be crazy because the amount of great storylines are already immense. Even the ROKKR Ultra stuff's kind of flown under the radar, but that's already a good one. And yeah, I don't know. Last year, the fight for champs was great, right? At the end of the season, there were like 6 or 7 teams that we didn't really know who was going to qualify for champs and who wasn't. But Paris were always terrible. So honestly, if Vegas, Legion, at least this year, can make a team that's at least somewhat competitive, like I think that will make at least every match will have some interest, you know? That's all I'm looking for. Every match I watch, I want to be at least somewhat interesting, which I'm sure won't happen, but we can only hope for the best. But yeah, that's going to do it for today, ladies and gents. Thanks all for joining in. We had a cracking show, and we went through all the rosters as they presently stand. By this time next week, it could be different. And once we start getting confirmations, we will be able to do our proper roster ratings, right? We'll be able to say this move is a B+, it's an A-, it's a whatever. Because as of right now with the rumors, you know, we don't want to go too hard, even though a lot of this probably will come true. But yeah, Crone, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure enjoying the Crone bombs. And,
I'll probably still be here next week on the podcast, guys. I don't have a job yet, so still unemployed.
Yeah, Crone won't be gone yet. But
yeah, I'll be around for a little bit. I'll still be tweeting from the Incel account, you know. Like I'm hoping that I can still keep doing that. It really depends what my day job is and if I can do it, you know, like I mentioned earlier in the stream. But I'm trying to stick around. I'm trying to find a way that I can, you know, I still love Call of Duty. So hopefully, fingers crossed that I'll stick around.
Fingers crossed for the boys. Thanks all for watching, guys. If you're watching on the podcast platforms as well, drop us a 5-star, drop us a thumbs up, all that good stuff really helps out. And we will be back next week, or you know, maybe we even come sooner if something absolutely manic happens. But I think probably we're over the craziness of rostermania at this point. But yeah, thanks all for joining us. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.